The message from the Virgin Mary has never been more urgent, as her revelations, originating from Medjugorje in 1981, have profound implications for the future of the world, particularly for 8 key nations: the United States, Russia, China, Brazil, France, India, Italy, and Japan. These countries, recognized as major global players, have been specifically warned of imminent challenges that could drastically alter the course of history. Despite their prominence in current events, the Virgin Mary's teachings offer a path towards salvation and protection, urging these nations to heed her call for spiritual preparation, repentance, and moral renewal. The Virgin Mary's apparitions in Medjugorje began when 6 young visionaries reported encounters with her on a hillside in what was then Yugoslavia. Since then, the region has become a powerful spiritual center, drawing millions of pilgrims seeking her guidance and peace. Her messages continue to resonate with people around the world, offering a call to return to faith before it's too late. Through prayer, conversion, and a reawakening of spiritual values, the Virgin Mary's teachings promise protection and hope for those willing to heed her advice. While her messages are often filled with encouragement and optimism, they also carry a deep sense of urgency and caution. The Virgin Mary's words point to a world in the midst of a profound spiritual crisis, one that is contributing to the global suffering we are witnessing today. From political unrest to natural disasters, the consequences of a world that has turned its back on spiritual values are becoming ever more evident. Her teachings remind us that these calamities are not random, but are the result of a moral and spiritual divide that is growing wider each day. The Virgin Mary urges humanity to return to the roots of faith through prayer and repentance in order to restore balance and prevent further disaster. The challenges faced by the 8 nations mentioned are not isolated. They are part of a global chain reaction that will affect all people. In our interconnected world, the problems of the powerful nations have ripple effects that reach far beyond their borders, influencing the entire human race. The Virgin Mary's message is clear. The time to prepare spiritually is now, and the consequences of failing to do so will be felt across the globe. The prophecy also draws attention to external signs that serve as warnings of the coming trials. As natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, and other environmental catastrophes become more frequent and severe, these events are seen as indicators that the world must change course. The devastation caused by these disasters is not just a product of nature, but a manifestation of deeper spiritual issues that must be addressed urgently. The Virgin Mary's teachings are a call to action for individuals and nations alike to turn to God, seek reconciliation, and strengthen their faith in preparation for what lies ahead. As the world grapples with moral and spiritual decay, the Virgin Mary's call is a reminder that spiritual renewal is the key to overcoming the coming crises. Her message is one of hope, but also of responsibility. It is a call to all of us, especially those in positions of power, to recognize the divine warnings and respond with prayer, repentance, and faith. By doing so, we can ensure not only our own protection, but the healing and restoration of the world itself. Let us heed her words, prepare ourselves spiritually, and trust in God's mercy as we face the uncertain future. In today's world, the growing tensions, political unrest, and economic struggles are more than just headlines. They are urgent signs of the times that demand our attention and action. Conflicts within nations, shifting global alliances, and the escalating discord between superpowers create an atmosphere fraught with uncertainty, making it difficult to predict what lies ahead. The challenges are mounting, and the need for spiritual preparedness and unity in faith has never been more pressing. Beyond the obvious political and economic crises, there lies a deep spiritual deficit that, if left unaddressed, could exacerbate the world's troubles and potentially lead to a collapse of societal harmony. The Medjugorje revelations, which speak directly to the heart of these global struggles, provide specific guidance on how to navigate the turbulent times ahead. One significant aspect of these messages is the mention of 8 countries whose influence on world events is profound. These nations, whether through their political, economic, or cultural power, hold the keys to shaping the future. The fate of the world, to a large extent, will depend on how they respond to the call for spiritual renewal. Their actions, or lack thereof, could either avert or accelerate the impending crisis that threatens international peace, economic stability, and even the physical well-being of the planet. The Virgin Mary's messages emphasize that these countries must urgently recognize the gravity of their spiritual crisis. Without a concerted effort to rebuild their faith, the prophecies warn that they will face devastating consequences. Natural disasters, economic collapse, and political upheaval are all predicted to strike if they do not change course. The fate of these nations, and indeed the world, rests on their willingness to embrace prayer, spiritual transformation, and a collective commitment to peace and justice. In the face of these dire warnings, the Virgin Mary's invitation to prayer becomes all the more vital. One of the most powerful forms of spiritual preparedness highlighted in the Medjugorje messages is the recitation of the Rosary. This traditional Catholic devotion is not just a ritual, it is a potent tool for divine intervention and spiritual protection. Through the Rosary, individuals and communities can shield themselves from the forces of darkness and draw closer to the mysteries of Christ's life. The Virgin Mary's call to pray the Rosary is not merely symbolic. She offers it as a practical means of defense against both external crises and internal spiritual decay. But prayer alone is not enough. The Medjugorje teachings call for a holistic approach to spiritual renewal, one that involves both individual devotion and collective action. It is not just about seeking refuge in prayer, but also about living out the values of the gospel through acts of kindness, generosity, and compassion. This combination of faith and action is at the heart of the transformation the Virgin Mary urges us to undertake. By living out our faith in tangible ways, helping those in need, promoting peace, and advocating for justice, we bring healing not just to ourselves but to the world around us. This call to action is not just for religious or political leaders. It is for everyone. Each person, regardless of their role or station in life, is called to be an agent of change. The spiritual awakening that is so desperately needed in these troubled times starts with the individual. By transforming our own lives and leading by example, we can begin to heal our communities and, in time, the world. This is the power of collective spiritual effort, the ability to change the culture around us, shifting it away from materialism and self-interest and toward a culture rooted in love, service, and faith. The Virgin Mary's message, therefore, is not just a warning of impending punishment, but an opportunity for profound personal and collective growth. It is a call to return to the core teachings of Christ, to let our faith be seen not just in words but in deeds. By embracing this call, we can become the light that pierces the darkness threatening to engulf the world. For the 8 nations mentioned in the Medjugorje revelations, the responsibility is clear. They hold a pivotal role in shaping the future, and their response to this call will determine the fate of many. But the message is universal. Spiritual preparedness is not a luxury, it is a necessity. As we move forward, let us heed the Virgin Mary's call, embracing prayer, faith, and action, and working together to build a world that reflects the love and peace of Christ. The prophetic call, a path to mercy and transformation as we reflect on the Medjugorje prophecy and the specific nations highlighted within it. The message is undeniably urgent and filled with profound significance. These 8 nations, the United States, Russia, China, Brazil, France, India, Italy, and Japan, are not merely listed as passive recipients of this divine warning. They are pivotal players on the global stage. With their influence over the world's political, cultural, and economic landscape, they have the ability to lead by example, embracing moral and spiritual values that can steer humanity toward a brighter future. The prophecy's message is clear. Spiritual conversion and compassion can mitigate the worst of what is foretold. While the world stands on the precipice of suffering, these nations can choose to walk a different path, one of repentance, compassion, and love. If they choose to ignore this call, however, the consequences could be devastating, affecting millions of lives with pain, disaster, and upheaval. Yet, even within this grim outlook, the prophecy conveys divine mercy. It is not a declaration of inevitable doom, but a call to transformation, a chance for repentance that could avert the worst of what is to come. Mercy amidst melancholy at the heart of the Virgin Mary's message is a reminder of God's mercy, even in the face of dire predictions. These warnings are not meant to instill fear for fear's sake, but to awaken humanity to the reality that there is still time to turn back. Repentance and conversion, both at the individual and collective levels, are the keys to changing the course of history. The Virgin Mary's words are not simply a warning, they are an invitation to a new beginning, a call to cleanse our hearts and souls, to reconnect with God, and to live lives rooted in faith, hope, and charity. Rather than seeing the challenges ahead solely as punishments, we are encouraged to view them as spiritual purifications, opportunities for growth, and a renewed relationship with God. These trials will be difficult, but they are not without purpose. The hardships we face can help us rediscover our true calling as children of God, united in love, purpose, and divine mission. This is a moment for deep spiritual reflection and growth, where grace can flood our hearts and strengthen us to face whatever lies ahead. Steps to prepare: prayer, conversion, and compassionate action. The Medjugorje prophecy outlines clear and immediate steps to prepare spiritually for the challenges of the future. Prayer, especially the powerful act of reciting the Rosary, is emphasized as a tool of both protection and healing. This ancient practice is not just a tradition, it is a spiritual weapon that can shield us from darkness and help us connect deeply with Christ's life and mission. Daily prayer, both individually and in groups, helps build the spiritual fortitude needed to face the uncertainties of the world. Beyond prayer, the call to conversion is central. Each person is urged to take stock of their life, to seek forgiveness for past wrongs, and to approach the future with a sincere heart, ready to live in alignment with God's will. This means more than simply changing outward behavior. It requires a deep transformation of the heart, a renewed commitment to living a life of integrity, compassion, and love. But the transformation does not stop with the individual. Communities are called to unite in shared spiritual practices. As we strengthen our personal relationship with God, we must also strengthen our bonds with one another, recognizing that we are all part of a larger body of believers. Nations, too, are called to embrace policies rooted in moral integrity and spiritual wisdom, leading by example and creating societies that reflect the values of faith, peace, and justice. A paradigm shift. Choices today shape tomorrow at its core. The Medjugorje prophecy is about choice. The future of the world, and particularly the fate of these 8 nations, is not set in stone. We, as individuals and as nations, have the power to determine the course of events. The Virgin Mary's message is a call to action, urging us to embrace a paradigm shift, to move away from selfishness, materialism, and division, and toward a culture of compassion, humility, and faith. The choices we make today will dictate whether we face a future marked by despair or one of hope and recovery. If we heed the call to spiritual renewal, there is still time to transform the world. While the prophecies speak of difficult times ahead, they also hold the promise of divine mercy. The Virgin Mary's plea is that we all respond with compassion, prayer, and faith, knowing that through these actions, we can bring about a change in the world that is rooted in God's love and will. A call for all, compassion, prayer, and faith. The Medjugorje prophecy reminds us that spiritual awakening is not just for the religious or political elite. It is for everyone. Every individual has a role to play in the great spiritual renewal that is needed to guide the world back to peace and harmony. Each person must be an agent of change, living out their faith and helping to rebuild the spiritual fabric of society. This transformation is not just about surviving the coming trials, it is about thriving in them through faith and compassion. As we prepare spiritually, we are called to live lives that reflect God's love, through acts of charity, service, and justice. By living our faith in action, we contribute to a culture of love that will stand as a beacon of light in a world that seems to be growing darker. Conclusion. A new beginning. The Medjugorje prophecy is a powerful and urgent call for spiritual awakening. It invites us to confront the moral and spiritual crises of our time, offering us the opportunity to change the course of history through prayer, conversion, and compassionate action. The Virgin Mary's words are not just warnings of impending disaster. They are a message of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, God's mercy and love can shine through. As we respond to this call with open hearts, we can transform ourselves, our communities, and our nations. Together, we can create a world rooted in faith, love, and peace, one that aligns with God's divine plan. Let us move forward with hope, knowing that despite the challenges ahead, we have the power to shape a brighter, more spiritually enlightened future. Thank you for joining this journey of faith and reflection. May the Virgin Mary's messages continue to guide and inspire you as we walk together toward a future filled with divine light and mercy.